Why does a country with less land than most U.S. states dominate global headlines year after year? Israel, a name that evokes deeply divided emotions more than just a nation in conflict. It's a power player, a master of narrative, and for many, a symbol of unchecked aggression. But what if the story we've been told is only half the truth? What if behind the veil of self-defense lies a systematic operation of occupation, dispossession, and control? In this video, we're peeling back the carefully curated image to reveal what many governments don't want you to see. Let's rewind to 1948, the year Israel declared its independence and Palestinians marked what they call the Nakba, or catastrophe. Over 700,000 Palestinians were forcibly displaced from their homes, a mass exodus accompanied by violence and destruction. While Israel was born out of a historical trauma, Holocaust's immediate consequence for Palestinians was another trauma entirely. The world, consumed by post-WWII guilt, largely turned a blind eye. That silence laid the groundwork for decades of occupation, violence, and systemic erasure. Over time, Israel positioned itself not just as a sanctuary for Jews, but as a military juggernaut, with billions in aid and cutting-edge weaponry. Largely from the United States, it became a regional power unmatched in its aggression. And yet, its occupation of the West Bank, the siege of Gaza, and the relentless expansion of settlements continue in defiance of international law. The humanitarian cost is devastating. Gaza, often described as the world's largest open-air prison, is under a crippling blockade. Electricity and clean water are scarce. Medical supplies are restricted. Over half of the population are children, living under the constant threat of drone surveillance and airstrikes. But how does Israel maintain such strong global support? The answer lies in media and narrative control. Israel invests heavily in public relations, often portraying itself as the sole democracy in a sea of dictatorships. It positions itself as the victim of terrorism, the defender of Western values. Meanwhile, the Israeli military regularly engages in actions that, if committed by other nations, would trigger global outrage. Bombing schools, hospitals, and media offices in Gaza is framed as precision defense. Entire families wiped out in a single night are chalked up to collateral damage. The silence of Western power, especially the United States, is deafening. Billions in military aid flow into Israel every year, with little to no accountability. Politicians who speak out risk political suicide. Even progressive voices in U.S. politics often stop short of condemning Israel's actions. Why? Because Israel is a strategic ally. Because lobbying groups like AIPAC wield enormous influence. Because moral outrage takes a back seat to geopolitical interests. The hypocrisy is stunning. Nations that champion democracy and human rights at home fund repression abroad. And then there's the tech and surveillance industry. Israel is a leader in cybersecurity and military tech export. It sells surveillance tools, border control systems, and military-grade drones to countries around the world, including authoritarian regimes. These technologies are often tested first on Palestinians before being marketed globally. This field-tested approach turns human suffering into a business model. It commercializes oppression, monetizing techniques that violate human dignity on an industrial scale. We must also consider the psychological toll on both sides. While Palestinians endure apartheid conditions and statelessness, many Israelis are raised within a siege mentality. They are taught to see Palestinians as existential threats. This creates a cycle of fear, dehumanization, and militarization that fuels perpetual conflict. Peace is not incentivized perpetual. War is profitable. A nation that lives by the sword inevitably normalizes the sword. And in such an environment, empathy dies. Humanity dies. Consider the legal framework. International law, including United Nations resolutions and the Geneva Conventions, explicitly prohibits the transfer of an occupying power's civilian population into the territory it occupies. Yet, Israeli settlements in the West Bank have grown exponentially. These aren't just homes, they come with separate roads, water supplies, and legal systems. Palestinians living nearby are subject to military law, while settlers live under Israeli civil law. This dual system of governance is a clear sign of apartheid law for one group, another for everyone else. Educational materials in Israeli and Palestinian schools tell two drastically different stories. How can two peoples live in such close proximity and yet exist in entirely different realities? The answer lies in walls not just physical, but informational and ideological. This isn't just about a land dispute. It's about power, control, and the erasure of a people. The international community must ask itself, how long can we allow one nation to operate above international law? How many more children must die before the world says enough? Israel must be held accountable not because of bias, but because human rights must never be optional. If human rights only apply to some, then they mean nothing at all. We're not asking for hate. We're asking for truth, for justice, for accountability, for a world where no nation, no matter how powerful, is allowed to crush another with impunity. Raising awareness isn't radical, it's necessary. Staying silent in the face of injustice isn't neutrality, it's complicity. If you believe in human rights, in free speech, in global justice, then this is your fight too. Like this video, share it, and subscribe for more in-depth breakdowns of the stories mainstream media won't touch. Truth demands a voice. Be that voice.